Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone and good morning. We are from the group 1 of the basic readings and we are here to explain about the pattern of organization. Before that, I would like to introduce our groups. Our member of the groups. The first one is Revina Pinkan Septiani, and then there's me, Selina Angelia Widianto, and then the next is Celestia Nurwinda, and then Umi Nur Alfiani Suryaning Tias, and the last one is Zahran Dinda Mahira. There's our materials. The first one is the pattern of organization, and the second one is the recognizing of paragraph patterns, and the last one is the understanding a paragraph patterns. The first material will be read by Zahra.
So I will explain about patterns of organization. There are many different ways of organizing the same information, and often two or more different organizational patterns are combined to create a final outline of information. The most commonly used patterns of organization are described below: chronological patterns, sequential patterns, spatial patterns, compare-contrast patterns, advantage-disadvantage patterns, cause and effect patterns, problem-solution patterns, topical patterns. Chronological patterns. A chronological pattern of organization arrange information according to a progression of time, either forward or backward. When a topic is best understood in terms of different segments of time, a chronological format works well. For example, topics of an historical nature are best organized using this pattern. A variation of these organizational patterns involves dividing a topic into past, present, future, or before, during, after segments. Example: Jack and Jill ran up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown. Jill came tumbling after. All stories are told about chronologically, and this is other example. For the next, sequential patterns. Sequential patterns of organization is similar to a chronological pattern, but arrange information according to a step-by-step sequence that describe a particular process. Using a sequential pattern, each main section of information represents a main step that one would follow in the actual process. The points included within each main section represent the substeps one would follow. When one wishes to describe a process that follows a specific series of steps in a particular order, then a sequential pattern works well. Sequential patterns. Example 1. Step 1. Harvest the grapes. A. Harvesting procedure number 1. B. Harvesting procedure number 2. Step 2. Prepare the grapes. A. Preparation procedure number 1. B. Preparation procedure number 2. Step 3. Ferment the grapes. A. Fermenting procedure number 1. B. Fermenting procedure number 2. Step 4. Press the grapes. A. Pressing procedure number 1. B. Pressing procedure number 2. Step 5. Age the wine. A. Aging procedure number 1. B. Aging procedure number 2. Next, spatial patterns. Spatial patterns of organization arrange information according to how things fit together in physical space, where one thing exists in relation to another. This pattern works well when a writer wishes to create a mental picture of something which has various parts distinguished by physical location. Topics involving geography, for example, are often best organized using spatial patterns. Spatial patterns. Example 1. Downtown waterfront. A. Aquarium. B. Pike Place Market. 2. Seattle Center. A. Space Needle. B. Pacific Science Center. 3. University District. A. University of Washington Campus. B. The Eve. Shops on University Avenue. Compare-contrast patterns. Compare and contrast patterns arrange information according to how two or more things are similar from one another or both. This is an effective pattern to use when the reader can better understand one subject when it is described in relation to another. If the reader is familiar with one topic, the writer can compare or contrast it with another topic to shed insight on it. Compare and contrast pattern example 1. 1. Cost of tuition. A. 2-year. B. 4-year. Quality of education. A. 2-year. B. 4-year. 3. Educational program. 2-year or 4-year. Compare and contrast patterns example 2. Number 1. Points of comparison. A. Educational programs. B. Cost of tuition. 2. Points of contrast. A. Quality of education. B. Types of degree. Okay, for the next, we'll explain by Sulis.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, I'm Sulistiana Linda, and I will continue the material. Okay, so advantageous and disadvantageous patterns. This pattern organizes information about a topic by dividing it up into its good and bad parts, or pros and cons. It is effective to use when a writer wishes to objectively discuss both sides of an issue without taking a persuasive stance. This allows the reader to weigh both sides of an issue. As with the compare-contrast pattern, there are a number of possible variations to an advantageous and disadvantageous pattern. The simplest form of this pattern is shown below. Advantageous and disadvantageous example 1. 1. Advantageous. A. Cost. B. Accessibility. 2. Disadvantageous. A. Number of educational programs. B. Quality of instruction. Advantageous and disadvantageous example 2. 1. Cost. A. Advantageous. B. Disadvantageous. 2. Accessibility. A. Advantageous. B. Disadvantageous. 3. Number of educational programs. A. Advantageous. B. Disadvantageous. 4. Quality of instruction. A. Advantageous. B. Disadvantageous. Next is cause-effect patterns. This pattern is used to show the different causes and effects of various conditions. This pattern is particularly effective when writing a persuasive document in which the writer advocates some action to solve a problem, because it demonstrates important relationships between variables. There are two major variations to this pattern. A. Dividing the outline into two major sections comprised of causes and effects, or B. Dividing the outline according to the different causes with the effects of each cause contained within the larger causes section, and you can see the example below. Cause and effect pattern example 1. 1. Causes of conflict escalation. A. Expanding the issues. B. Personal attacks. 2. Effects of these causes. A. Lose focus on original issue. B. Cycle of defensive responses. C. Win-lose orientation. And D. Negative emotions. Cause and effects pattern example 2. 1. Cause expanding the issues. A. Effect. Lose focus on original issues. B. Effect. Cycle of defensive responses. A. Effect. Negative emotions. B. Effect. Win-lose orientation. Next is problem solution patterns. A problem solution pattern divides information into two main sections, one that describes a problem and one that describes a solution. This pattern is typically used in persuasive writing, where the writer's general purpose is to convince the reader to support a certain course of action. The pattern is designed to compel the reader to make some kind of change in opinion or behavior by establishing that a problem exists, then providing a solution. In the problem section, the writer identifies different aspects of the problem being discussed and offers evidence of these problems. And in the solution section, the writer identifies a potential solution and supports the effectiveness of this solution over others. For example, problem is motorized transportation. A. Increasing traffic congestion. B. Increasing pollution. C. Increasing road rage from traffic-related stress. The solution of the problem is riding bicycles. A. Bike riding reduces the number of motorized vehicles in use. B. Bike riding is not a source of pollution. C. Bike riding has physical and psychological health benefits. Next is topical patterns, classification patterns. This pattern is the most commonly used format and will typically work when the other patterns don't. A topical pattern arranges information according to the different subtopics within a larger topic, or the types of things that fall within a larger category. Using this pattern, each type represents a main section of information. For example, topical pattern example 1. 1. Red wines. A. European. 1. Bordeaux. 2. Burgundy. 3. Chianti. And B. Californian. 1. Cabernet Sauvignon. 2. Pinot Noir. 3. Zinfandel. 2. White wines. A. European. 1. Bordeaux. 2. Burgundy. 3. Moselle. B. Californian. 1. Sauvignon Blanc. 2. Chardonnay. And 3. Riesling. Next is recognizing paragraph patterns. 1. Narration pattern. Narrative paragraph is a paragraph that contains a story about something. Narrative paragraph describes an event or event, both fiction or non-fiction. Narratives are often used in news presentations, scientific research journals, scientific books, to literary works such as novels and short stories. And for the component of narrative, like you can read it below, one is logical action, and for the example, you can read it by yourself. Number two is way of narration, and for the example, you can read it by yourself too. For the next material will be delivered by my partner, Revina Pinkan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you to Sulistia Nurwinda for giving me the opportunity to explain the continuation for this material. There are 8 parts of recognizing paragraph patterns, and the number 1 was already mentioned by Sulistia Nurwinda. And then now, the number 2 is the description pattern. The focus description pattern is a paragraph pattern developed by highlighting a part of the object being described. The attention of the reader or listener is focused on the part of the object described. This focus description paragraph can be used to describe events, objects, or people. So the meaning of this pattern is that we as readers are able to find out the object of a story or reading that we read by using these description patterns. Characteristic of a description pattern are first, has a clear focus and sense of purpose. Second, uses sensory details and precise words. And third is present details in a logical order. Description pattern is also have varieties. There are objective description and subjective description. Uh, this is the example of objective description. The example is about the Acer verbatim. As we know that the text shows facts and science about an Acer verbatim tree, it could be said that the object of the text was the Acer verbatim. If I read this, it's like the Acer verbatim is a small to medium-sized deciduous tree, usually ranging from 15 to 25 meters or 50 to 80 feet tall when mature. Its bark is light gray and smooth on younger trees, and it becomes rich and furrowed with age. So this is about the Acer verbatim tree. And then the second one is subjective description. A sort of description that the author would normally use to paint a picture of how he sees a character or how he wants the readers to see a character. Also used in literally discourse when there is stereotype image that can be attributed to a person, place, or an event. It is very clear in this subject description example. My mother had hair so dark that it looked like a waterfall of ink. It's very clear in this example the author conveys that his mother or the mother has a very black hair color. The mother takes very good care of her hair, so the subject of the text is a mother who has very black hair. And then number three is sample pattern. Sample pattern is a paragraph pattern that contains examples of topics or ideas that aim to strengthen these ideas. This section only reviews sample. For example, if it's like making a painting, surely we make patterns like the lines first, right? After the pattern has been found, we can continue to outline the shape of the painting to the coloring stage, right? Well, like that. So this is just a sample or an illustration of pattern. Number 4 is definition pattern. The meaning of the definition in a paragraph is the author's attempt to provide things or objects in the form of formal definition. Definitions with examples and other information that explain the meaning of a thing or object being discussed. Explain not just what something means or is, but also what something does, what something is used for, what something looks like, and something like that. The definition is also have varieties like um, scientific definition and subjective definition. The term could be emphasized by the following: first characteristic, second function, third effect, fourth origin. This is the and then this is the signal words of definition. There are is defined as, means, to define, as defined, refers to, or to illustrate. And then number 5 is process analysis. Understand all the information contained in a case, analyze the situation to find out what issues are happening and decide what action must be taken immediately to solve the problem. So, analysis is summarizing all the context or information that we have found in reading. And number 6 is classification pattern. Classification pattern is a pattern in which a particular topic is grouped into a particular group based on problems systematically and logically and arranged in tiers with special signs that function as codes. This pattern usually contains the words, among others, divide, and the like. And the other signal words for classification is another, classified as, one kind, the last group, another kind, final type, the first category, and the next part. For example, dogs are domesticated animals that have been living with humans for generations. Dogs can be classified, this classified is signal words for classification, can be classified in a number of different ways. For example, they can be classified by breed. Examples of different breeds include beagles, bats, hounds, poodles, and countless others as defined by the American Kennel Club, or AKC. They can also be classified by their role in the lives of their masters and the work they do. For example, a dog might be a family pet, a working dog, a show dog, or a hunting dog. In many cases, dogs are defined both by their breed and their role. For example, a dog could be beagle that is a family pet. That is example of classification patterns. And number 7 is comparison or contrast. Comparison is a level focuses on equality or a positive level. For example, snake is a wild animal. Tiger is a wild animal. And the two of the sentence become a snake as wild as a tiger, or the both of them are wild animals. The sentence does not use the formulation of a positive label or as adjective as but has a positive label meaning. Contrast, it is a level that focuses on differences. In this explanation, you will be taken to understand two types of level of comparison, namely comparative and superlative. In the comparative, at the following comparison level, you must have at least two subjects. For example, I have sentence, snake is longer than tiger. In the superlative, it can be at the following comparison level, you must have at least three subjects or more. For example, snake is more dangerous than tiger, but lion is the most dangerous of all. And this is signal words for comparing and contrasting. In signal words for comparing, there are also equally, in the same way, similarly, as, in a similar fashion, like, to compare, but, in comparison, likewise, and signal words for contrasting, there are although, despite, instead, otherwise, and yet, even so, however, still, as opposite to, even though, nevertheless, the fact remains, but in contrast, and something like that. For example, although I raised Mars and Obi from puppies, they have completely diverse personalities. Obi is a 6-year-old male toy Pomeranian, whereas Mars is a 1-year-old female Boston Terrier. Obi is small and soft, unlike Mars, who has bristly hair and is much bigger. Well, maybe that's all from me. I'm sorry if there are word mistakes or shortcomings in conveying the material. The last material will be continued by my partner, Umi Nur Alfiani Suryaningtyas. For Umi, the time is yours.
Number 8. Cause and effect. Cause and effect text is a type of paragraph that contains the author analysis of cause and effect. This paragraph begins with the cause described at the beginning of the sentence, and then drawn into a general conclusion, which is the result of the cause that have been described. Next, understanding paragraph patterns. 1. Patterns. Definition patterns is explains a term of phrase using distributing characteristic of synonym. Time sequence or process. 1. Describes steps. 2. Event. 3. Process or procedure. Number 2. Keywords. Definition keyword is refers to, means, can be defined as, is, otherwise, or also known as. Feature keywords consist of specifically, especially, in particular, in detail, namely, including. Begin. Begin firstly, initially, to begin with. Continue keywords. Second, afterward, later, meanwhile, the, and during. Number 3. Possible note-taking structure. Graphic organizer, concept map, timeline sequence map, flow chart. Illustration patterns is profess a point using specific sample. Argument patterns. Argument patterns is take a position of an issue and our support. Finish keyword is lastly, eventually, finally, ultimately. Intro and example, for example, such as, namely, and add an example also. Moreover, furthermore, a second support keywords takes a possession of an issue and offer supports. Answer keywords is, of course, certainly, and shortly. Graphic organizer of possible note-taking structure, concept map, timeline, sequence map, flow chart, matrix, word web, t-chart, balance. Description patterns use a detail and image to give a reader a mental image and speech of keywords about, beneath, under, over, strike, ahead, surrounding, opposite. Direction of keywords: left, right, top, at the bottom, at the rear, at the front, side, and edge. Graphic organizer, possible note taking structure, hierarchy map, and the last, word web.
Thank you, Umi, and everyone, for telling us about the materials. Okay, sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Umi, and everyone, for explaining us about the materials. And this is the reference link that we use to analyze and then tell you guys about the materials. Thank you. Thank you for your attention, everyone. We are very sorry if we have some miss point about it. And thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.